at Hinz, are you seeing certain trends and patterns starting to develop that you guys are tracking to right now?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I think that we're seeing a trend towards security overall, right? And that's varying degrees of security, whether you're high-end FedRAMP or whether it's just more secure where you have options not to create or pull information from the internet. And I think this is the big differentiator, right? Our people and our employees, our research students, whoever it is, are using open sources. That's exposing their IP. It's exposing their human, their individual IP, you might say as well. And that's going to put us in a really bad place, both from a foreign intelligence standpoint, from a business intelligence standpoint for the people. So that's one of the driving factors towards everyone's going towards some sort of closed loop or an option for closed loop, right? And just like, we wouldn't imagine putting our corporate emails in with a bunch of other corporations' emails. You have your own domain. We're eventually going to all have our own domains for Gen AI, maybe down to the individual level someday. It's democratizing that much, right? Certainly for the higher end systems, we're seeing closed and great content generation off their body of knowledge or their library.
That security point that you raised there is such a key point, and I think for us chatting to our customers, it's been top of their mind since this technology first came out. Like, how is this going to expose me, or what risks do I have with the technology? And 100% agree that that's the starting point for all these discussions. And I like the idea. I think it's really interesting that we might eventually have our own, personal domain when it comes to this, our own body of knowledge. I think added to that, and this is, spoken about very openly, is the risk of hallucination, because the bigger the body of knowledge is that you point this technology at, the higher possibility of hallucination happens. We've certainly seen that in our testing experiences as well. So if we can really narrow that domain down to just the right amount of content that is going to be proprietary, protected content, but that can be put to generative AI, we can get a much better result out of that, reduce the risk of hallucination, but have it really start to add value into the process. When we've looked at a lot of the generic tools that are out there, tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, the breadth of content that those tools can consume, or in Microsoft Copilot's case, that it does consume, is huge. So it's reading your emails, it's reading your OneDrive, it's reading your SharePoint environment. And when you ask it a question, it's going to consume all of that to come up with the answer. But that's too broad. It's going to come up with the wrong answers 90% of the time. It really needs to be narrowed down. So,
yeah, you hit on an important point there with that, narrowing it down and what it can pull from, right?
Right.
The system can pull from. And, this comes back and it ties into hallucinations as well. When you're pulling from everything out there, you're getting pretty creative, or the system set up to be pretty creative. Sometimes that can get great answers. But if you're a company, you want your differentiators in there, your capabilities represented. And I frequently get asked, a few times a week, about what's the government going to do? I'm not even going to use AI. It's going to hallucinate. And I say, well, actually, it's probably not going to be that you can't use it, because we know the government is looking for efficient ways and AI solutions to evaluate proposals. If we look at this, how it's probably going to go is it's probably going to go like, cheating software or plagiarism software that a university uses. It can quickly run your paper through and see if you plagiarized. It's probably going to be able to run your proposal through and see if you generated from the open source. Right? Which would have differentiators that aren't yours. Or you're probably going to have to declare, here's my domain and the service provider that I use for generation. And then, if it's a vetted provider, they know that it's only pulling from your capabilities, your library, your domain. And I think that's where the government's going to go. It's going to go, do you have a closed system so you're not risking our questions? And can you actually deliver on what you're saying you can deliver on? Those are the two big questions that remain that I think they're going to ask you to declare, but not outlaw the use of AI. You're going to have a system to do that, though.
Right. And that also makes a lot of sense, because whether we like it or not, this technology is here to stay, and it's going to become part of everything that we do. So all elements of our lives are going to be touched by it. It's really about the ethical use at the end of the day of the tech, as you've as you've positioned there.
No, I mean, I guess I had one more for you, and
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
it was just one more kind of capstone, kind of looking to the future and eye towards the future, right? Everything that is now was once a dream. So looking at your roadmap, you know, what is your dream for a year or 2 years from now? What do things look like for Course?
Well, obviously this technology is going to keep moving forward, but I think one of the primary areas that we're going to see changes is in the way that we interact with the technology. It's kind of like the Google search example that you used earlier, where we've been used to using kind of Boolean instructions. When it comes to user interface, people have been used to a click path and having to go through this very complex learning experience to adopt new technology, because they're going to learn all the click sequences and where to go for what. But I think it's going to change in the next year, that we're going to be able to adopt technology through natural language conversations with that technology, and that's going to mean that tools like ours and other tools in the market are going to be so much easier for people to work with and use. The great thing about that is that as the power of the tech improves and increases, that'll just become more prolific across organizations, and that value will expand out to more people, more departments, more areas. Subject matter experts, always a challenging part of the bid process, but they'll be able to interact with the technology in a more natural way, driving that adoption up. So we'll see it becoming democratized really across organizations, while the actual baseline tech just continues to improve, answers questions better, researches better, writes better, just gets better in all those areas. So that's one of the big things that we're thinking about and seeing as well.
Yeah, that will be game changing, helping the people interact with. You guys make that handshake. That's magical. So
absolutely looking forward to that. Anything that you want to add to that? Any trends that you guys are seeing for the next 12 months?
No, I mean, we're watching very closely. You know, we think we're at a stage right now. I look at the mass burst of companies onto the scene as kind of the Big Bang universe expansion. And, you know, I monitor the tech for quality kind of foremost, but I do watch the companies as well, right? As they hit Series A and Series B, I expect some industry consolidation, some people to potentially pairing. I'm best in breed for proposal management software. I'm best for AI, or any of those unions going to happen between companies. You know, is anyone going to get in trouble? I watch that really closely, because I don't want to, you know, recommend a car that you can't get repair parts for next year, right? So people that have the track record of survival becomes important. But I think we're going to see some concentration and consolidation in the industry a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement. I think we're anticipating some of that as well.